And welcome to the Nightmare Cabin. And I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Ben Carter from Evile. How are you, man?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good.
So are you excited about this new album coming out?
I'm excited and apprehensive in equal measures, I think.
So, I mean, Hell Unleashed is about to come out at the end of the month. And, how do you feel about it?
We're really proud. It's been a long time coming. Like I said, we're apprehensive about it as well, but at the same time, it's unlike anything we've ever released previously. So as long as it's honest, good, hard, fast thrash people are wanting, I think it's going to deliver. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously you've got a slight lineup change. Some people have gone, some people have come back. We'll get into that in a minute. But it definitely sounds different to your previous albums, but it also sounds familiar. And I think that's you found a nice little balance between the two. It still feels like an Evile album.
I think it's
a bit of a twist.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's every album we make, we're getting closer to that sound that defines us more and more. And I think this album, more than any of the others, is the sound that we've all collectively had in our heads for so long. It's like chasing the horizon a little bit, looking for your own sound. But I'd like to think with the new stuff, you stick it on and listen to 5-10 seconds worth, and you instantly know it's us.
Yeah, definitely. What I would want to do later on in the interview is trying to kind of go back to the beginning and go through all the albums. But it does seem progressively you did get darker in tone.
Yep.
And heavier as well. And this album, it definitely feels like it's got a darker, more serious undertone. You was never like a jokey band or anything like that, but you always had an element of fun. While this one, I mean, you've still got that element of fun. You've got songs about the Thing, you've still got the horror and whatnot, but there just seems to be a bit of a slight dark, sinister tone to this one.
I think if you look back to Enter the Grave, we were all kind of young and naive, and the subject matter that we were writing about and the way they were delivered, those songs, it showed the immaturity of the band, shall we say, and it showed all those songs were written up to the point where we got signed. That was back from maybe 2001 all the way up to 2007, perhaps. So those songs were bandied around for a long time before we actually got signed. So that's what went on the first record. Whereas now we want to kind of revisit those kind of same themes, but deliver them with more intent and make more of an impact with them. We're all older, we're all a lot more mature now, and we know how to work a song so it doesn't sound adolescent.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've Ol has come back into the band, and then Matt has left the band. I was just wanting to, if you could. From a fan's perspective, I did get a little bit confused. So I was wondering if you...
It's almost like a revolving door, isn't it?
Well, Skull came out, and I remember seeing you at the garage on that tour.
Yeah.
And I really do think you reached a pinnacle on that album. Like I say, you built to that album, and that was the album that it was there, and then that was the one you made the album you was always threatening to make. And then, there was Ol left the band, and he put out a statement, I want different things from life, and he went quite in depth with it. And then you guys got a new guitarist, and I remember there being the big sort of relaunch of Evile. You had that sold out show at the Underworld, and then it just kind of went quiet. And then I remember seeing Ol put out he put out an album, didn't he?
Yeah,
where it was all different guitarists, and I thought, hold on a minute, he didn't want to do music anymore, but he's put an album out, but they haven't. Yeah. And then another few years went by, and I was back in the band. And then, so obviously I've simplified 8 years in a couple of seconds. I know it's obviously not as straightforward as that, but if you could just untie a few knots for me.
I think what happened is with the release of Skull, it wasn't supported as well as it could have been in various ways, whether it was the label lost faith in us a little bit, or the outlet for us to gig and tour. We wanted to be really specific with the kind of bands we wanted to go out and tour with. We didn't just want to say yes to everything that came our way. And whether that kind of made the door close on ourselves a little bit in terms of touring, that in turn led to a period of kind of complacency where we didn't really know where to put ourselves. We'd kind of reached a pinnacle with the fourth album, like you said. But that in turn delivered the final album for the record deal we were on with Earache. So Earache decided not to pursue us anymore and didn't, that completed the deal. And whether that kind of cemented in their fact that that was as much as we were wanting to give them, I don't know what happened. But there was like a period of time where we'd felt like we'd brought out the best record possible for us at the time, really wanting to build on the work that we'd done from Five Serpents' Teeth. And then all of a sudden, it was almost like the road ran out for us. It was like the album's not done as well as we anticipated, even though in our heads and our hearts, it's the best thing we've ever done. And that confusion led to a period of like complacency and a bit of the disheartening, and you get kind of jaded with being let down a little bit, I think. So for All to quit the band and, look at getting his proper life, his real life on track, real life gets in the way sometimes. And he had to address that, and obviously now he's got kids and he's in a far better place than he was back in 2012 and 13, I think. So yeah, all rejoined the band. We were a bit stagnant with a guy called Piers that we had on guitar. He was a more than competent guitarist, but again, I think he joined the band when all left, thinking that we were going to be more active than we were. And when we weren't, he was like, well, sod this. So that kind of ended that. So we were thinking who we're going to get to replace Piers, just about the same kind of time that all was getting itchy fingers to get back into it. Like you said, he'd done his solo album, and I think that kind of gave him a taster of the playing in a band environment that he'd been missing. So that recapitulated with him coming back to the fold with Evile. And then, like you said, not too long back, Matt decided to quit, which kind of still sticks in my throat a little bit. Matt's a very, very hard person to replace in a band. I've said it in so many interviews, and I'll keep saying it. He was our James Hetfield. The delivery and the vocal ability combined with the guitar ability. What a gap to fill. Who do you look at? And it's also the face of the band. So it kind of threw us into a bit of, I don't know how to phrase it. We were a bit stuck, to be honest. So we had a bit of a think, talked about it amongst ourselves, and if we were going to have a real good crack at coming back, we needed someone who was a familiar face at the front of the band, who fans could relate to, knew the material, was capable of playing them and delivering the material, and then all just went, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, and
it made sense.
Yeah, it did make sense. It was when you saw that announcement, it was, oh, well, yeah. Actually, yeah. Like the more you thought about it, the more it made sense, And it was plus he was back in the band, and that came with it as well. And it was like, right, Evile are back, and they've got a new album this time, So it was a bit, oh, right, this has all hit me at once, Yeah,
it all happened within the space of a few weeks, but the entire backstory behind it all is Matt's health been deteriorating for quite some time, which in turn sort of caused a bit of consternation with him with the band. He wanted to do stuff with the band that wasn't happening. And then his health started going, and he's got 3 kids now as well. So his work-life balance with Evile was completely skewed. He didn't want to go on the road and miss his family and not enjoy all the 23 hours traveling and whatever else just to do an hour of gigging, when gig time came around. And that, but for us it was a huge loss. But all sliding across the stage into the frontman's position kind of cleared all that up. So it left the problem with finding a rhythm guitarist, which is where we drafted Adam from Riptide.
And how did you get in contact with him, and how did he?
We've known Adam a long time. He, like I said, he fronts a band around Huddersfield called Riptide, who are an up and coming thrash outfit. But he's been a fan of Evile since he was a little kid. He's always been to local shows with his parents and that kind of thing. And he's a really, really competent guitarist. His solo work's phenomenal. His rhythm work is great. He's got a fast right hand. And he's a fan. He's a fan of the band, and he wants to be active and partake in writing and be involved in the creative process. And that enthusiasm and that exuberance from playing in his own band will only translate well for us. It's just adding to the equation. So it's nice to have all 4 cylinders firing on full, for this new outlet, this new lineup, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think that's always beneficial when a new member. I'm always excited when a band, has a changing the lineup for whatever reason, because for some people always seem to stick to the original lineup or the first couple of albums, and it's like, well, no, a bit of change and a bit of new blood can shake things up a little bit. And I think it's always a great sort of, it's always just a great plus to a band when a fan joins it, because, you know, you just said it yourself where different things were coming into people's lives and different priorities are changing, and, oh, well, you know, where are we going to go with this? And, you know, and all of a sudden a fan comes in who's thrilled to be there because he loves the band, and he's gone, well, I'm up for it. And it just, that new bit of enthusiasm, it's infectious, doesn't it? And it just, you know, rubs off everyone else.
But I think as well, the working dynamic of the band has shifted ever so slightly, where now we're all in a place to be committed 100% to everything that comes along in front of us. The label are aware of that. You know, because of the pandemic and everything, everyone's so hungry for music. Yeah. We're hungry for an outlet. We're double compounded with the fact that we've been inactive for 8 years. So as soon as those gates open for everyone to go back and enjoy live entertainment, we want to be everywhere. You know, we want to smash down any hurdle or wall that people have put in front of us and just get out and gig as much as we can, because other people might only have missed it for, you know, as long as the pandemic's been going on. We've been missing it right since 2012. Other bands have formed and broken up in the time that we've been inactive, and it kind of sticks in our craw a bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, just adding on for what I was just saying about having a new member, it must have been great in that rehearsal. You've not done any gigs with the new lineup yet? No? Did you manage to do any gigs before? Yeah, it's only been a year, but it feels like a different lifetime, doesn't it? But when you guys, you're playing like Enter the Grave for like 100th time or millionth time. Yeah. He's going to be playing it for the first time, and he's going to be loving it. So it's, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But that in itself is going to be enjoyable to be part of. You know, seeing Adam with a huge smile on his face playing the songs that he's been a fan of for so long. Yeah. That's just going to lift everyone on stage.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's going to be great. I mean, it's obviously getting a bit. Well, it seems like they're still working out how they're going to go about it. But I think once those, hopefully, I've gone through every cycle so far. I've gone from, you know, positive to completely doom and gloom to let's just see what happens. But
everyone has it in ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think once those first couple are done and they work out what's practical and what's not, and just getting it out there, then hopefully it'll all just like floodgates opening, you know.
I mean, I think I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about like we're traditionally from grassroots venues in UK. Do you know what I mean? It's very rare that we get to do big venues within the UK, unless it's part of another band's tour or something. But because of the pandemic, a lot of these smaller places will have shut down. So by the time everything reopens and it's safe to gig, and we're looking at dates for maybe January, February 2022, by the time everything comes back and everything reopens, how many of those grassroots venues are still going to have survived to be able to have bands in? And then all the bands are going to want to gig, and they're all going to be chasing the same dates. So it's going to be so difficult.
You've got people with cancelled dates making up the previous tour that they've cancelled. So I know it's going to be. Yeah.
I think stuff in the UK, territorial stuff in the UK, is going to be really, really good. I think the venues are going to be sold out. I think there's going to be a constant stream of bands wanting to and actively playing. But then for someone like us who's got an album cycle that needs to get into Europe and get further afield, we're compounded again a third time by Brexit. So, we're not really planning anything in Europe or further afield just yet until that's sorted out as well. Our government needs to pull its thumbs out of its arse, I think.
Yeah, that needs to be sorted. I know every basic country you're going to have to fill out forms, and you've got to claim something that will be worked out just for practical reasons, because what a lot of bands again seem to be getting het up about it, but I just think, well, they want bands traveling through their countries to get the venues going, to sell the booze, to sell, you know, to put on concerts. The music industry in those countries are just like the ones in ours. So and again, I think with the lockdown that it's just been sort of put to the back foot. But I know people quite high up, like people like Roger Daltrey and people like that, are all getting together now and figuring things out, aren't they? So
we need more people to add to that weight of the movement and kind of
once it's seen the demands there, I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, I think one thing leads to another. So as soon as lockdowns lift and people start feeling a little bit safer in public spaces, I think that's when they'll have to address it. Then they won't have a choice.
I think as well. I think when you start that tour, and you've got that new album, the tour always kind of sometimes it starts like a week or two before the album's even out.
Yeah.
Or you're playing a gig and the album might come out that day or that week. So when you fly out some new songs, some people might not have heard them yet. Some people have I've bought the new album at the merch stand, say, because you can't get hold of it.
Yeah.
So you have a couple of, everyone's head banging and reacting to the songs they know, but you've got this new track and you have a bit of movement or a bit of reaction. But some people are going, oh yeah, not heard this one yet. But where this album now will be well and truly, absorbed and digested and all the rest of it, you'll be, it'll be like playing a greatest hits set, even though it's still new.
I think actually our first gig back, if it goes ahead, is Bloodstock Festival in Derby, and that's like second week of August. So it's a good couple of months or whatever for people to have the album, digest the new stuff. So I'm hoping when we air the new stuff live, that opportunity with such a, that's like our spiritual home in the UK is Bloodstock. So I'm hoping they'll go over really well and people have had time for them to sink into the heads, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've managed to listen to the album a couple of times. I've been sent a stream, and Paralyzed I think is a fantastic opener. I just love the way it's just it just builds up and then and you've got Brian. I can't pronounce his surname, so you go tell me. Yeah, there you go. He did a bit of a spoken word on the intro to Gore. How did that go about?
Oh, he did the backing vocals for Gore. Yeah.
I thought it was his spoken word at the beginning. Sorry.
No, we worked with Brian a couple of times. He did the backing vocals on Cult on Five Serpents' Teeth as well, and he's a big fan of the band.
Oh, I didn't realise he'd gone back that far. Okay. Yeah.
And I think All has always kept in touch with him online and just always had jokes and memes across the internet with him and all that kind of stuff. And he just always shows his support for Evile. He's a really true believer in proper metal, and he's always good to just hit up and say, hey, can you just do this for us? And he's like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll pass those through. So all he did, I believe, is just record the vocal patterns for Gore in a sound WAV, and he sent that over to All, and then we kind of manipulated it and stuck it in the song. Yeah. Everyone who's watched the video was like, oh, I've not seen Brian anywhere. Where's Brian? Well, he's at the other side of the world and we're in the middle of a pandemic. So in an ideal scenario, we would love to have had him in the video in some capacity. So that's something we'll sit on and do in the future, I think.
Yeah. I think every track really, it's so good because it does sound kind of what you've been describing. It's that like this pressure valve is just popped off and everything's just flowed out. Everything that you've sort of held back the last 8 years.
You pent up everything. I think
you sound great on it. It's got to be said as well.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
And you all just sound. I'm trying to put. You just sound inspired. Just sounds like you're having fun. And it feels like you've found your groove. I think
back the passion and the teeth are out and we're hungry for it again. We want to, after 8 years, we want to kind of come back and stamp our mark on the scene so hard. It's almost like not people have forgotten we exist, but we kind of have to prove ourselves all over again. And I'm hoping that the new album does that.
I don't think there's any danger of that. Yeah, I think this is going to go down really well. And I think people have missed you. I think people are ready for a new album.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way. I mean it in a good way. But whenever you're 5 albums in there, but you're quite far into your career, and normally a band around who's been going for as long as you have, they might put out an album that's a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
Maybe they've done a completely stylistic change, or they've put out an album that's a bit autopilot. It feels like you've skipped that bit and just jumped straight to the reunion album or the Find Your Feet album.
amongst the four of us, before Matt departed the band, we always said that with Infected Nations, it was almost too proggy and a bit too exploratory to be the second album. It was like we wrote album 4 or 5 as album 2. And
Yeah,
somehow
we'll get into that. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that.
So maybe the dodgy album's already been and gone, you know? We just concentrate on the thrash and the intensity now.
Yeah, I think as well, I've heard of this a few times where you said about with Skull that it kind of, you come to the end of your contract and you was a bit like, well, the label didn't really push it that much, and it was a bit of an anticlimax at the end of that tenor, really. But I've found with a lot of bands, you always find a band will have an underrated album, and I do think record labels, they do kind of just run out of enthusiasm for their bands, and you think, well, it'd be better if you just let the band go, and rather than you put out an album that you're not even that bothered about, and then the next album, when they're on a new label, that'll be everywhere because this new label wants to push this new product, this new band that they've got, you know. So, I remember
one thing compounded the other there. I think if Earache knew that they weren't wanting to work with us for a 5th album, it was our fault as well because we didn't have a plan of what to do next. So because it wasn't pushed, the numbers weren't good enough, you know, and then the new label looking at stuff are only going off that you're as good as your last release. So
yeah.
One thing affected the other going forward, I think. And, you know, it's 50-50. As much as, you know, maybe the label weren't ready to do a 5th album for us, I don't think we had a plan of what to do next. We were in no man's land. So, yeah, it's our fault as much as anyone else's.
I think I remember reading something with Barney Greenway from Napalm Death, and he said, you know, when they go, what would you give advice for younger bands and all the rest of it? And he said, I only ever sign a 1-album deal. And he had a bit of a point there because they had a really bad breakup with Earache. I think that's well documented. And I don't know if they've been on. Who are they with now? Is it Season of Mist or Century Media?
I'm not sure.
Doesn't matter, but they're with a label now that they've done quite a few albums. But they did have a bit of a trek where they did 1 album every label.
Yeah.
And he said if you only sign on for 1 label, they're going to put everything into that 1 release. He went, if you've got like a 5-album deal, they're going to go, oh well, we've got them for the next 10 years. But this band or that band or this artist or that artist are hot at the moment. So that kind of takes
sense.
Yeah.
Barney's very shrewd, I think, as a businessman. And he's the sort of person that you kind of look up to. And after looking at the plotting out of their career, if anybody knows how to work things in their favour, it's a band like Napalm Death, I think.
I think, yeah. If like I was in a band myself at the time, and I was thinking, I don't know if I want to take that gamble. The one when you're unsigned and you're looking to get on that next level, you want to just grab everything by any opportunity you can. So to go, oh no, it's all right. I just want the 1 album, thanks. So yeah, I think what we'll do then, we'll go through the band's catalogue so far.
Okay, dude.
Right, you've got a gig. I don't know if that. Have you got the gig coming up where you're going to be doing the Enter the Grave in Fall? Is that going ahead still?
Yeah, it is 9th of October.
That's definitely going ahead, yeah.
As far
as you can, yeah.
It's been rescheduled.
Your power, anyway.
So we've kind of missed the anniversary of the date that it was supposedly for to start with, but we're still going to honour it. And for fans that don't know, it's going to be Matt's last gig. Matt is going to be doing the Enter the Grave portion of the gig.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that will be cool. So you're going to be doing like a 2 sets thing.
If anyone does want to know, it is like the last opportunity to see Matt sing and play with Evile. So.
Oh, right. So the band originally formed as Metal Militia, and it was predominantly a Metallica covers band.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And then when did you do we're going to start doing our own stuff, and then that's when you changed your name to Evile?
Well, we kind of got to the point where we were doing so well off the back of the Metallica stuff as Metal Militia. We same thing. We didn't know what we were going to do. We were getting offers from Europe to go out as a proper legit Metallica tribute band because at the time so many bands were doing the Metallica tribute thing, but they were doing it as a 5-piece because there weren't many people, like I said earlier, that could do the whole vocals and the rhythm guitar stuff like Hetfield as well as Matt could with Evile. So we were umming and ahhing about that and deciding which way to jump, and we thought, well, no, if we're going to go out and get paid for doing this, then why don't we write our own stuff and get paid for doing that? Which is what we did. We wrote a few songs, and that's where stuff like Death Sentence came in, and Russian Roulette, and Enter the Grave. And we kind of snuck them in amongst the Metallica stuff at certain gigs.
Yeah.
And they went over just as well, if not better, than the covers. So we were like...
I think people were scratching their head going, what Metallica album is this on? I don't...
Exactly, yeah.
Must be off the demo, yeah.
We were writing stuff circa like, Ride the Lightning kind of feel. So... parity shifted there, definitely, and we just thought, sod it, let's bin the Metallica thing, let's stop trying to be something that's already gone before us and focus on our own material. So we wrote a load more stuff, and before we knew it, we'd like an extended kind of EP ready to go. And we kind of made this pact among the four of us to go out and gig every weekend, everywhere, as far afield as we possibly could, and just hammer the UK with the name of Evile. And that's what we did.
Yeah. So 2007 we have Enter the Grave. I've got a special edition here.
A Redux.
Yeah, this is the one with the DVD. We did the album in full when you got a bunch of live footage and whatnot. Oh, and you got the demo on there as well.
Yep.
And love the album cover as well. That's become a classic album cover, hasn't it?
I think it has. Time. It certainly sets it apart, definitely.
What reflecting on that album, how do you feel now on that?
Well, like I said, we were all so young and naive getting signed to Earache at the time, and it was just a case of, wow, somebody actually wants us. Someone wants us to do an album. Brilliant.
I remember when that album came out as well. There was a shift going on in metal at the time. Everyone was kind of on the whole metalcore thing. You had new metal was coming to an end, and then you had your kill switch engages and that, and then this came out, and then the thrash revival kind of followed afterwards. But you were just ahead of the curve on that. Yeah,
I think Earache's ability to spot a band that's about to break in that way is something they've always had. They did it a bit with Rival Sons most recently, who are now global. So I think they did the right thing in picking us up. But at first we didn't believe it was full Earache. We thought it was going to be like a minor subsidiary of Earache or something. But no, they turned up to Bloodstock and signed us on the Monday morning, the weekend after the festival. Then obviously they said, who do you want to work with as a producer? So we kind of joked and said, Fleming Rasmussen. And they were like, all right. That's how that came
just call him now. Yeah.
Honest, that's all it was. I think in the Earache office, they kind of drew straws as to who was going to approach Fleming because it was that big a deal to them.
Yeah.
And he picked up the phone and he just said, yeah, I want to do it. So so you get signed by a label and then you work with Metallica's producer and you're in the shit, you're in the deep end then. So we had to kind of pull it out of the bag.
Yeah.
And somehow we made Enter the Grave. It wasn't the smoothest recording process because we didn't have a clue what to expect. We'd never done it before at that level. But it's its own entity is Enter the Grave. It kind of set us on the path to where we are now. So I look back at it fondly. I really do.
Have you ever done the thing where you're playing it in full? Have you ever done that before?
No, I don't believe we have.
Apart from on the DVD where you're doing it in the rehearsal studio, but
yeah, and I mean those early dates we did when we were running on the back of like the Megadeth tour and the Exodus tour, we didn't have the stage time to perform it in full. We only had like 4 or 5 songs to do each night. So yeah, I think this will be the first time we've ever done it full front to back.
Oh, great, yeah. Because obviously everyone says, obviously we did the first one because but we've been giving it all that time. But so this is the first time that will be done in an actual show. That'd be cool as well. Plus, obviously with Matt being doing one final performance. So then in 2009 we had Infected Nations.
Yep.
And like you say, when you listen to it back, I've listened to the albums as well the past couple of weeks in anticipation for Hell Unleashed, just to see how it, matches with the evolution of the band. And yeah, this was a massive step forward.
Well, like I said earlier, like those songs on Into the Grave had possibly been around for 4 or 5 years before we recorded them. So they were, like I said, so adolescent. We wanted to showcase the development and the musical ability of the band and how far we'd come as musicians from Enter the Grave. So that's why a lot of the songs on Infected Nations are long songs. They meander, they go places, they kind of stretch us really as musicians. You think about the instrumental we did on there.
Yeah.
Second album, and you throw in a 12-minute instrumental out. It's like, what are we doing? But I think we needed to do it to show that we were viable and show that we weren't just a retro thrash band. I'd like to think we're a little bit cleverer than that in terms of song structuring and things like that.
I think as well with the whole retro thrash thing, there was a lot of bands around that time as well.
Yeah.
And it was becoming a bit of a parody. And by you doing that, you did set yourselves apart. Definitely. You definitely saw.
But it was perhaps too much of a change from Enter the Grave material that some of the fans we gained with our first release, we lost with the second. But then we gained a whole new bunch of fans that realised that we were a little bit different from all the other thrash bands that were coming back at the time.
Yeah, I think as well, when you said, you really sort of went full bore with, you put in progressive elements, you've done that 10+ minute instrumental, but sometimes you've got to just push just to see how far you can go with things, Yeah, I think any great band, when you look in their back catalogue, even with, say, like with Metallica's and Justice for All, or, with some of the Maiden albums where they might have put some keyboards in, or they went, full prog on some other albums. It was just, well, let's just take this little element of our sound and just run with it and push it as far as we can, just to see how far you can go with it.
Yeah, I think Infected Nations was our experiment into that, how far we can push the sound in terms of layers and creativity. Not one song sounds like the next on Infected Nations, and some of the more complicated proggier elements that we put in songs like let me think, probably Nesophoros and probably Devoid of Thought.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, the end section of that, I don't even think to this day I could play it if I was put behind a kit to play it now. It was so complicated, and it was almost like we learned it just for a studio recording,
I think, isn't that as well with Iron Maiden, when they Alexander the Great, it was such a bastard to record. There was something, nah, it's never. We're not even going to try doing that live.
We tried it a couple of times live in certain settings. I think we did it in a tour in Germany, and we realised that I've always said that punters at gigs and people who are there, they only know 2 speeds and they know 2 directions. They know stop and go, and they know up and down. And if you throw out a really stupidly complex thrash song at them in the middle of other really easy thrash songs, they're not going to know what to do with themselves. They just kind of stand and take it in. And unless you've got a musical mind, or you're a musician, or you know how to interpret it as it's being written, I don't think you're going to enjoy it as much as people who are just there to enjoy the gig. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I've done an interview with Lee Harrison from Monstrosity.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much saying the exact same thing you're saying about Monstrosity's second album, because that second album was really technical and it was just as extreme as you could get it.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, it was all well and it was all good. He went, but you could just tell when we would play something from the first album, it was all moshing and headbanging and people flying everywhere. He said, and as soon as we played something off the second album, everyone just stopped. And it wasn't that they didn't like it, but they just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, that's what happened to us in Germany.
Yeah, and he said we definitely kept that in mind for the third album. He went, the live. This may all sound good now, but has it's going to go across live.
Yeah.
And that was really taken into account going forward. And again, it's one of those learning curves, isn't it? But so moving on to Five Serpents' Teeth.
Yep.
Oh, camera. I think this one was basically what you've gone through with Infected Nations is kind of you've sort of smoothed off the edges on this album, and you've sort of gone, right, we know what works, what doesn't work, or what's right for us and what isn't.
Yeah.
And again, but it is just it's another massive leap forward. You know,
it was our most successful album for sure, and that kind of set us on the path to going to the States and doing that massive, ridiculous run we did over there for 5 months. And the songs are a lot more accessible, a lot more immediate, and I think with the inclusion of stuff like Cult and Zariah and stuff like that on there, it opened us up to a completely new fan base as well, because there are so many commercial elements to it. We almost meandered back into the realms of Metallica-isms. Do you know what I mean? In terms of big songwriting, that's all we were focused on, choruses and riffs. That's all we wanted on Five Serpents' Teeth. The mix that Russ got for us was absolutely amazing, and I think to this day that's the best the band's ever sounded. You know, for those songs.
Yeah,
it doesn't come over live when we played those songs, but on that record, that mix for those songs works so well. It is almost like a pop thrash album, I think. Serpents.
And you mentioned you was in America for 5 months.
Yeah, we were there for about a couple of months. Then we came home and did loads of UK festivals and Europe festivals, and then we went back right from September all the way up to the day before Christmas Eve.
That's fucking.
I think in that entire time we had like 11 days off or something, which for a band trying to break into America at our level is unheard of.
Well, just a band that started out as a cover band, and let's just start. Let's start writing our own songs. Yeah. And then you've ended up, most bands are killed for that.
Exactly.
So, looking back, you must be, you must definitely, you must have some wow moments and just,
Yeah, we do.
We did it,
You kind of look back and question it and go, well, how the hell did we manage to do that? How did we pull that off? But then you kind of rationalize it and go, well, we must be doing something right because we've just done an amazing 5th album. People must believe in us. People want to hear it. So we're going to keep doing it,
Yeah, I mean, and none of that as well. I mean, I think one thing, with the music industry in general, I think they do say, it's the one industry where you can just build up and work up and just craft this thing for 10, 20 years. And then you could maybe sell out an arena. And the very next day, it's as if, so... What are you going to do? You literally have to start again all the time. But I think it's a bit different with metal. I think people do remember a band name. They do remember that album. And I do think a good album, it doesn't age. People, they love an anniversary. They love a reissue. They love watching that, that reunion show or the show where they're... What's your take, by the way, on in general of playing an album live in full? Would you be up for doing that with Five Serpents' Teeth or Skull or?
When the time comes, definitely. It's all about how we can deliver it. Sorry, I'm choking.
Don't die on me. You got a gig in November.
Shit. 2 seconds.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Trying to drown myself in tea. Yeah. Way to go. Right. Albums in full. With Matt leaving the band, I can't see us doing songs like In Memoriam or Tomb or what else? Zariah, possibly. Until all gets a bit more confident in terms of his vocal ability.
Yeah, that's one thing we haven't spoke about yet. Is we'll do that when we come to Hell Unleashed. But yeah,
we do the album rundown. Yeah, sure.
We'll go through. I'm
not close to the idea. Definitely not. But
yeah, so coming up, Skull. I remember. Even between now when this was released, my boy's 11 in July, and he was a baby. Well, no, he must have been a couple of years old at this point. But I remember being in my last house, and in that time, yeah, so he would have been. since this has come out, I've moved house and had another son, and he's 6. So it's,
there you go. There you go. Life goes on, and
yeah,
for us, it's just stood still, really, like in terms of music stuff. So, but
yeah, he would have. Yeah, 2010, my eldest was born. Yeah, and this was 2013. So yeah, he still would have been a baby. But yeah, this is this to me. I mean, I think Five Serpents, Teeth, and Skull are probably my favourites up to this point, and I'm still, getting my head around Hell Unleashed. I've listened to it about 3 times now.
Yeah.
But yeah, when that CD comes, I'll be definitely
hammering it,
and obviously I've got this review coming up. So
cool.
But yeah, this one, it feels like you found the technicality, the technical sort of element comes back into it a bit more.
Yeah, very much.
And this was the one as well where it really felt quite atmospheric, and it kind of reminded me a bit of like a death album. It didn't sound like a death metal album as such, but it had that feeling that those, like when Pestilence or Death went a bit wiggly and a bit proggy and a bit weird, and it had that vibe.
I think Skull is us trying to emulate the technicality of the second album and marrying it with the commercial aspect of the third one. It was like, we get it now.
Yeah.
So they're a lot more to the point, more so than the songs that are on Infected Nations, but they've got that kind of fun, instant, catchy chorus kind of quality that the stuff on Five Serpents Teeth had. And that, for us, unlocked like a completely different road. It was like, cool, we know what we're doing now. We finally feel like we've got a handle on this, which is why it was so much of a kick in the balls, really, to not have it have the same success that Five Serpents Teeth had. It was, the songs are better. It's like blistering in its delivery. And for us, it was another feeling of, we've cracked it this time. And so, what do you do? It is what it is.
Yeah, but I think Time's going to be very kind to that album. I think it's going to be looked at quite fondly in the rear view mirror of metal.
I think if we make an impact with this 5th album and it makes interest for the back catalogue, that's even better for us. I did the same with Metallica. I got into Metallica at like 11 years old, and my first Metallica album was On Justice for All. So I had to go back and listen to, Puppets and Ride the Lightning. And
it's what everyone does, doesn't it? You always you jump on board with the new album of the time, and if you get into it, you go, oh, brilliant, and then you work your way backwards, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm hoping something that translates over for Evile. I really do.
So what was in the band's sort of collective mindset then in writing this new album? And did you sort of go, well, we want to pick up from where Skull left off, or did you just sort of go, no, we're going to completely start again, and this is let's start writing and see where things go? Or did you just sort of take it naturally and go, well, where does this fit into the old stuff? Or just tell us sort of writing.
I think this is where Matt and all differ in terms of creative. Their brains work in different ways, obviously. So Matt wanted to be a little bit deeper in the sort of stuff we were writing, and all wanted everything to be thrash, more immediate, big punch to the face, remind people that we can play fast. And there were a couple of songs going around that we were working on for a long, long time. And I think at one point, one of the versions of the new song was clocking in at 11 minutes something. We were like, no, we can't do this all over again. I understand from Matt's perspective, he's always got this thing where he wants people to have to do the workings out themselves.
Yeah.
In terms of lyrics and song, what the songs are about and meanings and stuff like that. And that's cool. I do love that way of working. I do love leaving stuff open to interpretation. But we've done it before, and you can't we wanted to just make a fast, thrashy, smack in the face album.
Yeah, sorry, I'm choking on tea now myself. It's a curse of the tea. Yeah.
So we didn't. We thought, like, if you're considering that an album might be like 48, 50 minutes, then if you're writing an 11 or 12 minute opus, that's a quarter of your time gone. and it just wasn't going to work. So those songs that were kind of in the works with Matt, we left with Matt. You know, they went with Matt. For the rest of the stuff, it was all the faster, thrashier, attacky, violent stuff, and then reminding people that we are a bit tongue in cheek because we're a thrash band. How can you not be? So that's when stuff like came in about, oh, we'll write a song about The Thing, you know, because it's pretty much all of our favorite movies. So we're going to do that.
Oh, it's a fantastic film. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Yeah,
it
never gets old. The best thing about that film is that it actually gets better with age.
Exactly, it does. Yeah. It really does. Practical effects, all that kind of stuff. Kurt Russell's brilliant. Just, it's a great embodiment of everything that makes a horror film good in my eyes. So yeah, we wanted to get that element of the fun back. And this time around, we weren't really bothered about what anyone else thinks about that. We wanted to do it for us. We're the ones on stage going to be playing it night after night. We want to write music and play music that we get our rocks off playing. And I think to a certain extent, we've kind of forgotten about that aspect.
Yeah. And so with Ol's vocals, and he's got a very different style to Matt. It suits this stuff perfectly. But was that discussed? Is that what's the...
Well, because all members, they've got the same DNA, and
yeah, I mean, he'll definitely be able to pull off the older stuff, but it will be. I think he will have to tweak things slightly to.
Yeah, so slightly, but he's very kind of early on in his vocal journey, whereas Matt was already way established and his range is ridiculous. With the way that All's mind works and how he sets himself to a task, I have no doubt at all that given 5 or 6 months down the line, All's going to be every bit of a front man as much as Matt was, just because he's chosen to growl and do a little bit more of a visceral delivery on this new album doesn't mean to say that he's not going to be capable of doing the older stuff. And I think some of the fans are forgetting that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a natural entertainer anyway. He was always had good stage presence, and he was always,
yeah.
And what was I going to say then? Yeah, I mean, he's obviously, he's a familiar face as well with everyone, and he's a likable guy. I mean, you watch any interview with him, he's a laugh a minute.
I think as well with the Twitch stream and everything he's got going on online, his presence is just growing and growing and growing. And if we can garner that energy and use it at the front of the stage with Evile, then that in itself is a big bonus.
Yeah, I think as well. It's that perfect sort of album where you feel everything sort of come full circle. You've got little bits of everything that you've done before, all perfectly combined, and every song is perfectly paced as well. You've got shredding 1 minute, you've got a nice groovy bit. You still got your melodic parts, but they're just speckled in just to break things up nicely. And yeah, it's just a perfectly balanced, perfectly paced, thrashing, metal mad album. It's great.
I think it's our strongest album to date, if I'm completely honest. I love the song from there. It suits my way of playing. It suits my way of attacking the drums and getting everything out of my system. It's a massive workout for me. So I can't wait to get out and get behind a kit and play it live. It's just going to be so much fun.
I think as well, one thing that I've got to give you credit for as a drummer that gets overlooked is that you've, as much as you are all over the kit and you do love your speed and all the rest of it, I think one thing a lot of drummers forget today, especially now with your drum cam thing where it's all, you do love, you do emphasize on groove and you know when to put in. And you know when to sort of step back a little bit and let things breathe. And
I try and work closely with what All's doing with his picking hand as much as what's going on with the vocals. And one thing that I am proud that I can say I can do is go from that stupid, ridiculous, blistering fast tempo to going down the gears and finding the pocket to make it groove as well. I do enjoy doing that. If a groove's cooking, then I'll always sit on it and make it work more. I like that aspect of playing. I'm not just a thrash drummer, that's the thing. I've grown up playing jazz, rock and roll. I know how to sit back and swing. So if I can marry that with the power and the speed element of playing, then that for me is a perfect place to play.
Brilliant. All right, man. Well, I think we'll wrap it up now. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Ben.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, all the best with the new album. I've got every confidence that it's going to go down a storm.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one thing I think the appeal Evile has always had and still has is that you've all very down to earth guys, and it's clear to see in every interview and live on stage, you just four mates that love your metal, love what you do, and it just comes across, and people just warm to you guys because you're just so relatable.
Yeah, it's a privilege to play in front of people. So, it's not a right. It's something that we love doing, and we'll do it for as long as people want to hear us. It's as simple as that. We're just normal guys.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, hopefully see you soon, my friend. And it was great talking to you.
Thank you very much.
All the best. And thanks for watching The Nightmare Cabin. Thanks for watching this. Give us one of them if you liked it, and we'll see you all soon. Take care. Keep listening to metal.